Welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about profiles, document templates, and keyword tables. Um, when you search for and select a student, or you navigate to any student, as you know, you will see two icons next to that student's name. The icon that is the picture of the student's profile takes you directly to the profile information for that student. The profiles that you have access to are governed by and controlled by your membership in the security group that you've been placed in. So if you are a user who has been placed in 504 security, for example, you would have access to the applicable 504 profiles, so forth and so on. In this particular case, you can see I am looking at a user who only has access to the profiles that are for special ed. Now, you'll see this afternoon when we start to talk about security. The security is very modular, so if a user needs to have access to special ed and gifted and 504, they will have access to all those profiles just by virtue of how they are placed in and how those roles are added to their accounts over in PowerSchool SIS. So just to be clear, when we're talking about student profiles, it's not that we limit them to just one particular area. It just means that you have to have the security to that area to be able to see them. Okay, so here's our student profile area. And of course, our document template area. The document template area is associated with the document template icon. It takes you directly to that document library for the student, where a user could create documents if that user has access to quote unquote create documents. In addition, it is where they will be able to select any documents, templates that they have security access to, or to view or edit any live documents that are already created and in process. The keywords are the drop-down validation tables. Keywords are resident on both profiles and within documents themselves. As I said earlier, keywords are really to control the entry of data into a particular field. In the case of our profiles that are for special demographics or for student demographics, in many cases, those keyword tables are controlled because we're translating PowerSchool SIS codes directly and crosswalking them to our codes in that integration process. In the case of keyword tables that may be used within your documents, they are drop-down values to ensure that when users are entering values into those particular fields, it keeps them consistent, keeps them standardized, allows you to ultimately even be able to report on specific values. Not all keyword tables are editable, okay? There are keyword tables throughout the Alabama model that only the product team can change. And that is because they might have state compliant options in it, or there are specific reasons that that keyword is linked to another keyword, to another form. So of course, they do not allow you to edit it. So when we begin to take a look at these keyword tables, you will see that there are keyword tables that do not have an edit table option. And that indicates that they're locked down and you are not allowed to edit them. All right, so the profiles, the student profiles, all the profiles in general, the document templates, the keyword tables, and now we're going to introduce another really important concept in special programs, and that is called data flow. Within the configuration of special programs, there is a process that is called data flow, and data flow controls when data flows either from a profile to a document or from a document to a profile. So starting with profile to document data flow. Data flow is when, for example, the information on the student demographic page, such as the name, the ID, the grade, the birth date, automatically flows into a document when a document is created. We call that profile to document data flow. It profiles and populates the fields within the actual document. And as long as that document is in draft or review status, in other words, it has not been finalized, if any of those fields which originated on the demographic profile change, it will update that document. So here's an example. I am working on a draft document and it has flowed in the primary phone number for the parents. That document is in draft. That phone number gets changed over in PowerSchool SIS, which in turn automatically refreshes the student demographic profile. That updated data will then flow over to the document template. And either one of two things will occur depending on the document. It will either automatically update it without telling you, depending on a setting, or there will be a message at the top of the document that says information has changed, and then it would say phone number. Do you want to update your document? In which case the user clicks yes, and that new updated phone number flows into the document. Okay, so that is an example of a document behavior. You're going to hear me talk about document behaviors. A document behavior that is set to automatically update the document with changes. The opposite of that would be to give me a message that tells me and let me decide if I want to change it. But that is that data flow that is occurring from the profile to the document, and it occurs as long as the document is in draft or review. Once it's been finalized, it no longer refreshes it because it's a governing document. So obviously it's been closed for any kind of editing and updates. Now, there's also data flow that goes from the document back to the profile. And that is the case of all of your special program related profiles. Section 504, gifted, RTI, EL, special education. As the users create and finalize documents, when those documents are finalized, specific data in the fields of the document are pushed back over to the appropriate area in the profile to update the profile. Okay. And that's why it's so important that we say, oh, you need to be careful about finalizing documents, because if you finalize a document, the data that is in the document overwrites what's on that particular profile. Okay. So that's what happens when a document is finalized. It doesn't happen until the document is finalized, which is why you could be working on a draft. You might have all your IEP compliance dates, your annual review dates. It's all set. It's over in your special education profile. But when that actual next annual review is finalized, for example, what's it going to do? It's going to push out all those new dates and update that profile. Of course, there are different documents that update different parts of the profile. And in the case of, and I'll use intervention as an example, there is an intervention start date that flows over to the RTI profile when the student is entered into, when a parent entrance letter is created. There are additional dates that flow over into the RTI profile when an actual individual intervention plan is created. So the same thing applies to 504 gifted in all of the modules. It is not just one document, it is through the series of documents that are created for a student as they're finalized that populate and flows data over to these different profiles. All right, so now we went over, we're going to talk a little bit more about profiles. We were over in the profile types when we were looking at the globals, but of course the profile types, and I bet I got logged out. See, I knew I got logged out. Administration, configuration, profile types right here. Within the profile type area, what we're really looking at, of course, is in this kind of configuration backend, these three areas that we're going to focus on right now. It's really the primary area that your product team, your configurators, this is where they're working and building your forms and your business rules for your forms. And in the profile type area, this is where all of the profile containers are designed and built. So you can see that for every area that stores data, there are corresponding screens or profiles for displaying that. And if I pop down here to students and open up students, it will show me that those are the profiles that are considered parent-student profiles, okay? So I have student demographics, special ed, gifted, 504 RTI, preschool services, state reporting, and of course, EL. And from here, I can pop into any one of those. And notice that as I am looking at that profile, when I'm back here in the configuration area, I'm actually seeing the profile as well as the fields and the field names in that profile. So think about how that integration, remember we had that data source, take this piece of data that's over in PowerSchool Sys, push it into this field. Same way over here, take a piece of data from a document, push it over here into the case manager field. Okay. So this essentially is how they design them, how they map them to their fields. And in cases, you can even see, for example, where evaluations completed within 60 days, I can see that that probably even has a built-in calculation behind it. So this is where they're building it. I really want to see what it looks like. I could go to the testing format. And from the testing format, I can see which fields have drop downs in them, which fields have lookup tables in them, which fields are date driven, etc., etc. Okay, so that's the testing format, so I can see what they look like. I can come over to the fields area, and I actually can see the field definitions for each of those fields and labels, and exactly what it does, what the character type is. And I can also see wherever there was a drop down that is connected to a keyword selection. So directly from the field area, I can say, oh, this is a keyword. And when I click on it, it'll take me to the keyword table. And this is a perfect example of a keyword table which you cannot edit. Okay, there is no edit there. So who maintains that? Your product team maintains it. Come back to the profile type. Sorry, I had to go all the way out and come back in. All right. Okay, we're over in special education. Here we are. So that was the fields, okay? So we have the output, we have the testing, we have the fields. There are section properties. Section properties are completely controlled by our configurators, as is the HTML format. So those two areas are never open for editing by any of our districts. Fields, as I said, just gives you all of the field names. And then over here is something called the data flow report. The data flow report is just, as I said, it is the sort of under the covers way of looking at a particular field and knowing how it's populated. So I can look at this case manager field and know that, oh, that's coming from the referral field on the referral for evaluation, okay? So I can see as I scroll down any field that's getting populated by a document action, meaning the document was finalized. And so whatever was in a particular field is going to populate that field. Now, this is not very accessible to an end user. So if I was an end user and I'm in product training, I would want to know as I create documents, you know, what's finalizing those. And of course, that is part of what your users will learn about when they are in product training. And in addition, there will be, as I indicated, a state help area. And it is within that state help area that those profile, there'll be information on each profile that is unique to Alabama, and it will tell you what document data is flowing out to each of those individual profiles. So there will be some very accessible user help screens that will be available to all your end users. Clearly, I want to show you this because this is really just kind of under the covers in terms of understanding the concept of data flow and how things are coming in. But of course, that information is also going to be documented for you in an Alabama state guide. All right. Constraints. Constraints are also where the configurators in your product team are writing the constraints, which are the business rules. Okay? These are the business rules of how your Alabama model is programmed about, how the different warnings, so forth and so on, all very unique to just Alabama. So there's your profile types. There are profiles, as I said, for every particular area of data that is stored out here. If you were to pop down here where it says all fields, be aware that it is this alphabetical directory that is really your data dictionary. So for students, this is giving you every field that are in your database tables for the kiddos. So over here in alphabetical order, if you wanted to have any information, of course, information about how they did it, what they're using as the calculation. So kind of under the covers, just things you can see, not anything that you would configure per se there, just to know where that data is stored. All right, now we're going to talk about document templates. We talked about profiles over here. Click the flyout to navigate to the student. You will be able to see all fields. You have data flow reports where I think it's really critical sometimes to be able to go back here where I have found this to be a really important thing that I need to know is when I start to really do deep dives into writing reports. And I need to know what the name of a particular field is because I'm writing a report against it. So FYI. All right, document templates. Your document templates also have a category under administration configuration. As an admin, you have access to view every document template that's part of the Alabama model. You will see that they are organized by category. They have a description, which is what the end user sees when they go to access a document, but they also have a template ID, which is really the name of the document in the backend coding. So if you're looking at anything on a data flow report, you'd see that's the ID that they're referring to. Right now, all of your templates in the model are active. There are times when you might see a template that's in development. You might even see a template that is retired. In that particular case, that would be a situation where maybe templates are being adjusted, maybe some new state compliance rules, maybe a section is being added. So the process that your product team and your configurators adopt is that they will create a new document template. It'll be in development. Of course, when it's time to push it out, they will move it into active, and then of course they might retire a document that's no longer used. All right, so in the document template area, administration, configuration, all the way over here to document templates. Notice that we have all of your, as I said, here are all of the document templates that are part of the Alabama model. As I said, you can see the template ID as well as the status. Notice that there's a column that tells you how many sections. That's important because when we talked about multi-section documents, it lets you know that there are more than one section to the document. And of course, from here, I could even go and navigate into any one of those sections. So from this area, I can open a document template and I can see the actual format of the document template with all of the fields mapped to it. But I might really want to look at it this way, which is the testing format, which allows me to be able to see, for example, what this is going to look like. Now, here's a good example. See where this says sample school district? That's a sample school district because in this database, the global profile says sample school district. So when you update your global profile to have your district name in it and your address, it is going to automatically grab that data now and put it on the top of your forms. So as I'm looking at this testing format, you can see that directly from here, I can see which fields have validation tables, which fields are linked to date fields, which fields are required, narrative fields, so forth and so on. So the testing format, it's a good way to be able to say, oh, I don't know what this looks like. Oh, I see what this form is. Also, notice that if you have a document template that has more than one section, when you open it up, you are going to see all these different sections. If I wanted to see what that annual goal page looked like, then of course I would have to pick that section to be able to see what that's going to look like for an end user. And as you can see, when we start to talk about template design, the templates are created, they have multi-sections, they have child templates that are embedded in them. And of course, all of this is through your model team. And so very little capability for you to change what a form looks like. That's why you have your model team. So any changes that are part of the actual document templates are things that you'll work with your product team after you go live to request any enhancements or things that are going to get changed or added to the model for all users in Alabama. We do have an area that is called section properties, or let's talk about field properties. Field properties, because this is an area that even though I said there are the constraints and the rules and the business processes and the fields that are required cannot be changed, we have now added a functionality that allows our districts to be able to modify and change some of the field properties in the document template. So this is something that could be accommodated by the security administrator using the admin account. You would not be able to change required fields that the product team has made required, but you would be able to, in your document templates, be able to make additional fields required if they weren't required. You might want to make specific fields that are not being audited right now available for auditing changes. You also can set some workflow, and the workflow is really the process by which any form who has a field that is populated by a staff record, so a signature line, that could be case manager, homeroom teachers, so forth and so on. You actually can now configure routing so that when things are reviewed or finalized, it automatically sends a message notification within special programs to that user. So clearly, those are really more advanced topics, but kind of really exciting topics. But just be aware that that is all, that is something that can be done by an administrator using the field property capability within the software. All right, so going back to the testing format. The area that as an administrator that is just kind of standard that I want you to really know about is that there are these properties here, which are the document properties, and the security over here, which controls document template security, which is who's allowed to create this document, edit this document, finalize this document. So let's start with the properties first. Within the document properties, every document has a set of default properties. And you can see here under template behavior options, you will see template options. And there is a set of options that is turned on or enabled for this particular document. We happen to be looking at an IEP. Okay. These are set by your product team, and they are set all the same for all of you. However, with that said, an admin, an individual signing in as a security administrator admin account does have the capability to change the defaults. Okay. And so you'll notice as I highlight each one of these, it tells me what it's doing. It's very hard to see the print. It's very small, so I'm sure you guys can't see it either. But it's giving me some tooltip help. And notice that if I, as an admin, were to go in and change anything, it highlights it in yellow, okay? So in this case, this happens to be an IEP, and we are, let me give us a scenario here. I am going to turn off the watermark on review status and drafts. Just maybe hypothetically, we don't print watermarks. That's not how I want drafts. I would rather have a draft, have it up in the header. So up in the header at the top of the docket, it's going to say it's a draft. I don't want watermarks. So if I enable these as an admin, see how over on the behavior options, it tells our model team that, oh, these were overridden by the admin. So the next time I release a new software update, I won't change these for you. You changed them. I'm going to honor the fact that you changed them. And of course, I can, or even our support people can always come in here and say, oh, I see where they changed those options. Okay. And of course, now I've turned them off. So kinds of things, as I said, the watermark printing is a good example. The ability to attach a file to an IEP. So maybe you want to upload a signature page. Always be able to see the document setup for new documents. That's really important on an IEP because that's where you can say, oh, what year you're creating it for example. So some of these best practices, we tend to know what options districts will need to have turned on. But as I said, there are template behavior options that can be controlled, and they might be different. They might be different on any document. So what I see on an IEP might be different than what I see on a gifted plan. And it looks to me, as I look like them, it looks like the standard set of behavior options have been enabled for most of your documents. And just so you know, this is another area, we'll talk about this at the end of the session, but when we talk about having additional work sessions, we will be having additional work sessions where we talk about more in depth, you know, how do I work with my behavior options and refine some of those or change them. So some additional information about that as well. So every document, properties, behavior options, control the specific behaviors of that document. The defaults are all set by the product team, and admin could in fact toggle them on or off. And of course, it will indicate that they've been changed, and future releases or updates would honor them and not change them. All right. So we also have next to each document something called document template security. And within the document template security, it controls for a particular security category what each security group within that category has access to do for those documents. And so this happens to be an IEP. And if I look across the top, so kind of we'll take the document out of the picture here, because what you see across the top are the document template rights that are set for every document. So in other words, every document template has rights. The rights that are associated with the document template are, can I view it? Can I create it? And when I create it, it creates a draft. Okay, so if I create it, can I edit that draft? Am I going to even utilize review? So, when we talk about statuses, we have 3 statuses: draft, review, and final. So this is controlling that, it's set to a draft. Am I allowed to change it to review? Am I allowed to change it to final, for example? So as a user, can I change the status? Can I print it? Can I attach files? Could I edit files if somebody else attached to it? And can I attach files to final documents? And so for every document and every security group in the system, document template rights have to be set up. And so by leveraging and giving you default security groups and giving you a baseline, we have done this for you. Now, can you refine and can you modify what we've given you? Yes, you can. And that's what we're going to talk about when we get back from lunch. But what we've given you is a baseline, because otherwise you would be creating all of these different groups. And for every document template, you would have to go in and set up all the document template rights for every group across the board. So what we've done is, as I said, giving you some best practice guidelines, giving you something to start with, giving you a baseline that you can either use totally as is, or you can make some modifications and refinements to it based on how you do business. All right, so we talked about document templates. You can view a document. You can modify template security for document-wide properties and security. And you can also go into properties and adjust any of those behavior options if you wanted to change the defaults. All right, Last but not least, that last bridge is the keyword tables between them. Remember, I said that while you might be able to see a keyword table values, if it doesn't have an edit up on top of it, it means that you're not allowed to edit it. So the keyword tables that you are allowed to edit, you can access from your keyword table area under configuration. So right here in your keyword area, you will notice that you have an alphabetical directory, and the keywords that you are able to see under this directory are the only keyword tables that are admin editable. Because if I were to pop over here to G and look for gender, I will not see it. And that is because you're not allowed to edit that. So for tables that you are allowed to edit, you'll be able to see the name, the description, and where it's used. So I can see that this is in an individualized education plan. It's in the goal area section, and it's the area field. When I click on the zoom icon, it takes me to the existing set of values. I can see by looking at these keywords are shadowed out. That means I can't change it. But if I click edit the table, I could edit the descriptions. So they've locked my codes down, but they have not locked down my descriptions. If I wanted to add a new keyword table, I would click on my insert, add a new keyword table. A keyword is the code. So the rule about a code is that it has to be unique, okay? It's that unique identifier. You can code it however you choose. It is a custom, no spaces. You would give it a description, and when you add it, this custom flag will automatically be enabled. So insert, we're going to do a test. Insert it. It'll throw open that custom. That's a custom. Same, just as that's going to, for any future releases, if they were to replace this keyword table by adding some new values, it keeps your custom options in place. Okay? So if they decided they were going to change this word from mathematics to math, it might replace this one. It won't replace that one. All right, so you can see as I go through the alphabetical listing, sometimes there's not a lot. I'll go over here to S's. You can see here where services, special education services, interventions, related services, instruction plans, all of these different kinds of things are associated with keyword tables. In the case of this happens to be instructional actual keyword tables that are instructional strategies, so that a district could actually customize a lot of their instructional strategies. Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of walk us back through a couple things just so that you can kind of get a demonstration of how all this might flow together. Because we've talked about profile types, the document templates, and the keyword tables. And so here's an example of why and how I might really find the information that we talked about today really useful. I'm over here, I'm going to go over to my staff profile. And on my staff profile, and I'll just grab somebody I had opened previously. Let's search for Michael Abrams. I have a user, and I will go ahead and click edit to open it up. And notice that on my profile, there is a field called position. Okay. And if I click on this drop down, I have a list of all the keyword tables that are included in that drop down. And this happens to be a field that is not coming in over integration. So it typically is a field that users will go out and manually enter, especially for their key special education or key special population folks who are using the system, by making sure they have a position. And the reason they do that is because when the staff record is selected from the actual profile, it will automatically populate any position field that's in the form. So it's a way of just bringing in some data into the form through data flow. It's essentially what it's doing. So I'm looking at this, and what if I need to add some additional values to this, or change some of these descriptions, or maybe I don't even use some of these, so I don't want them in the list. All right, so I'm thinking, oh, that's the position keyword table. Okay, I got that. Administration, configuration, keyword tables. P for position. I can't find it. There's no table called position. How do I find it? Without going through every one of these. So I know it's on the staff profile. So I'll come over to the staff profile. I'll come down and select the staff profile. I can see that this is the position, so I could do it from here, or I could go to the fields. Either or. I'll go to the fields. Here it is, position. Oh, it's connected to a keyword called staff positions. Click. Here it is. Click at it. I can't change the keyword. I could change the description. And if I have a value that I'm not going to use, I can inactivate it. So that's the first thing. I can inactivate. This is what this means. I'm not going to use it. You can't delete it. I could change a description, or I can add a new one. The keyword, the description. If you're adding a new one, make sure you turn on that in use flag, or you'll add it and won't see it in your list. And of course, the custom will get turned on when I save it. All right. All right, so lots of information in this session. There's nothing that you have, there's no homework, nothing you have to do other than this was really designed to really kind of open up your eyes and awareness to what are these profiles, what are these document templates, how they all interact together. And so when we come out with all of our descriptions on the office learning sessions, when we start to publish those schedules, that's when you'll know that, oh, I am really interested in doing a deep dive into setting document properties and behavior options, okay? I might want to know more about keyword modifications, specifically to do a deep dive into all the keywords that are part of the configuration for our TI, for example. This was just really the precursor to understanding a little more about these deep dive working sessions that we're going to be offering as we move into the upcoming months. So just kind of wanted to share that with you. If as you've been watching these sessions and you have ideas for us, maybe things that I haven't mentioned, put it in the QA. Please put it in the QA, because you know we are looking for ideas from you as well. Very, very important for that. The other thing that I want to tell you, because we're just about to break for lunch here, is that if you have users who are watching the Zooms with you, if they're watching the webinar with you and they did not come in through the registration link, then they will not be captured on my attendance rosters. So if you have users that are hanging out with you today, watching this webinar, please put a note in the QA area and tell me your district name and their name, and I will manually add them to the attendance rosters, right? So they get credit for it. So very, very important about that. When we come back from lunch, we are going to be starting off and talking about security. So we're going to look at the Alabama default security groups. We're going to talk about PowerSchool SIS integration. And as I'm also going to share with you as part of the discussion about security, the processes for getting your admin account. I got some information on that while we were on break. So I'll share that with you. I'm going to entice you to come back and spend the afternoon with me by that promise. So have a great lunch. We are going to start back at 1 o'clock your time. So I'll give you a little bit of time. And as I said, we're going to have one pretty in-depth session about security. And then the last session of the day to close this Friday out is we're going to be doing a migration overview. That overview and the wrap up usually only takes about a half an hour or so. So I'm going to try and get all of you out by 3 o'clock this afternoon. So you can go start your weekend. So with that said, I'm just going to stop sharing and we will be back at 1 o'clock your time, or 12 o'clock your time. It's 1 o'clock my time. So at noon, at 1 o'clock your time, 2 o'clock my time. Thanks, guys. See you in a bit.